Hey there everyone, Crazy here. During the year 7 anniversary stream for Dead by Daylight, they revealed that Chapter 29 and Chapter 30 were going to be licensed.
The next two killers that will follow after that are going to be licensed, and I would say licensed with a big L if I can. Really iconic additions to the game. Extremely excited to be able to talk a little bit more about that.
As you can see, they said this next chapter was going to be licensed with a big L, meaning that these are going to have to be some very iconic licenses. So yeah, we'll go ahead and break down all of this information here and what I believe the next killers can be. So I made this quick little infographic here. It's a little messy, but don't worry, I will be sure to explain everything here. We know for sure in June we are getting Chapter 28, which is going to be the original chapter and transmission. And in July, we will be getting the licensed survivor, Nicolas Cage. And for August, we know for sure it is going to be a full chapter, meaning a killer and a survivor. Because of this, I do believe Chapter 29 Survivor is going to have to be very iconic to warrant a full chapter. Because of this also eliminates any potential killers that do not have obvious choices for survivors. Therefore, I chose these three properties here. For Five Nights at Freddy's, I believe they would have to do the security card because they play such an iconic role in the game, although I do think there is potential for them to go without. And it's also very obvious a lot of people do want Five Nights at Freddy's in the game. If you go to any comment section, it's one of the top asked licenses for the game, and therefore I think would warrant it being a very big license. So there totally is potential for that. As for Friday the 13th, this is obviously one of the biggest, most hyped licenses, and Dead by Daylight has even gone on record to say that Jason has a open slate in the game whenever they can add him. And we do know the rights battle is over. So it's really any time now we could eventually get that chapter, I believe. And of course, I did put them in this slot along with the Survivor because I think they would have to add Tommy Jarvis with this. With people waiting so long for this chapter and being so hyped for it, I do not think there's any room for them to half-ass this at all. I think they need to go all the way out, even add the Camp Crystal Lake map and do all of that. And next up for Alien, we did recently see there was a lot of hype building for the potential of Alien in Dead by Daylight, and I definitely think it would be considered a very big license for them. I put it in this slot here because I believe they would not be able to do an Alien chapter without Ellen Ripley. I think she is way too iconic to go without, and although maybe there could be some potential of them going without Ellen Ripley, I think it would not be a good idea, and I think Behavior knows that. So next up in October, we actually are not getting any chapter, just a tome. And next up in November here, we have a single killer, which is also going to be licensed as we already know. And yeah, this list is pretty stacked here because there's honestly a lot of options to choose from. So for the very top pick here, I do have Pennywise. We know in the past, Behavior actually was in contact with the license holders and were trying to get them in the game, but they were turned down because they said they were too busy with things, and were basically saying that Dead by Daylight was not as big of a game for them to worry about doing a crossover with. Of course, we are now at the point where Dead by Daylight's very big. We're getting Nicolas Cage in the game, and there's a lot of hype going around it. We also got the new movie coming out that's also going to generate hype. So I do believe there totally could be potential they might renegotiate. And next up here, we have the Nun from The Conjuring. This one is a bit of a sleeper hit, but I do gotta say, I think it would still warrant it being a big license in their eyes because The Conjuring is a very big movie series. It is also worth mentioning that Dead by Daylight has worked with Blumhouse on the Dead by Daylight movie and is in constant negotiation with them. Therefore, them adding them would be pretty likely. And next up here, we have Art the Clown from Terrifier. I did put a orange arrow on this one just for the fact that I don't think this necessarily would warrant being called a big giant license. I definitely do think Art the Clown has recently been gaining some popularity, but I do not think it has quite yet the hype surrounding all these other licenses I have mentioned. It's also worth noting, according to Steve Barton, he has actually been left on red by Dead by Daylight when he was publicly asking for Art the Clown to be added. so that also does not help this case. Next up, I did put Candyman. There is a lot of people wanting him in the game, but I sadly think the community asking for him is just not big enough to warrant them calling it a huge license. Which is very sad because I do eventually want Candyman in the game. I think he would be a very good killer. Next up we have Megan. Just like the Nun, they are working with Blumhouse, so that does help their case. But I don't think Megan is quite yet popular enough to again warrant it being called a big huge license. I also put down Jason and the Xenomorph as not likely because like I stated before, I think they would have to do the Survivor counterparts for those chapters. And for Five Nights at Freddy's, I did put a yellow check for this one because honestly, they probably could get away without doing the security guard. So I think there could be potential for that. And next up, I did put down Vecna from Stranger Things as the only killer on this list with an X on it. And this is because of the fact that recently on a podcast with Slasher Radio, which I will be sure to link down below, thank you very much for this information, they actually did have Matthew Cote confirm that they are still not in contact with the license holders of Stranger Things. So yeah, here's that clip.
But I would probably be crucified if I didn't bring it up. Stranger Things.
Yeah, what about it?
Everyone's begging for Hawkins Lab and just all how relevant it is now. People just want so much more of it. I guess it's kind of the same road as the Terrifier 2. It's just, what's the stance on this now as far as Dead by Daylight? Is this something that, you know, how interested are you guys in revisiting?
Have you talked to people at Netflix recently?
I've tried to.
Yeah, me too.
That's super fair. That's super fair.
I mean, we have never wanted to remove content from the game.
Absolutely.
It's never been our plan or a business plan. That being said, we have talked about potentially like limited time offers for a few different things because that could be interesting, but that's never been the plan so far. And so it was not our decision to remove that content. And if we could get it back, we would be happy to.
And yeah, we're back. So yeah, it's pretty sad news. I mean, of course, there is a small possibility Matthew could be just pulling our chain on this one, but I do not think that is likely. If I were to give my definitive opinion on what I believe these chapters are going to be, I'm gonna have to say Friday the 13th for chapter 29. This is because of the fact that with them stating that this is going to be a huge license, I do not believe they would say that for nothing. We've had many licenses in the game, and they have not always used the word iconic or say it's a license with a big L. I think with them overstating that fact means it's gonna have to be Friday the 13th, although it could be the other ones. As for chapter 30 with the single licensed killer, I think it really could be anything. There totally would be potential for there to be a Five Nights at Freddy's single killer, most likely being Springtrap with different animatronic skins for him. And that would make sense with them saying both of these chapters are very iconic. That would be one of the few combinations that would work. But I think the most likely personally would be Pennywise. As for the others, I do think some of them could potentially be possible, but I think less likely. And yeah, that's basically everything. Thank you all for staying towards the end of this video. If you did enjoy the video, a like would be much appreciated, and a subscribe would be awesome. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, stay safe in the fog.